Under Operations, 2017-18 school start times.
Mr. Allison?
Thank you, President Logan. A few comments and then be happy to answer any board questions. Following the community survey regarding the school calendar, the board asked administration to go back and take a look to see if there were any potential modifications that we could make that would offset the concerns at the elementary level about the dismissal time, but at the same time not increase the transportation costs. And again, every time we talk about the calendar, I'm going to remind our community that that was a decision that was made based on fiscal need, not what we felt was necessarily in the best interest of our students. But that was where we were forced to go when you looked at a list of needing an additional $3 million in cuts. What those other possible options were seemed at the time to be the lesser of the two evil. I want to thank Mr. Armendariz and his staff because we went through the survey, questions that we had from staff, email, and looked and grouped a number of possible scenarios, which the Transportation Department then worked through to analyze. And the key piece to remember here is that, you know, oftentimes I would receive emails or we looked at the survey and they'd say, well, if you'll just do this, if you just shorten the time between school runs, you solve this issue. Because of a triple-tiered transportation route, 7, 8, and 9, when you look at magnet programs, like we had Northeast Magnet here tonight, where students are coming from all over the district, or special ed routes where a student may be living on the west side, but because of cluster programs, the program they're attending is on the east side, it becomes a very, very complicated situation. Mr. Armendariz and his staff worked through those different scenarios. We looked at, for example, shortening the run time and needing really an hour between your drop off of your 7 a.m. to be able then to get in place to pick up the students and have them at school in time for the 8 a.m. route. What would it take to make that 15 minutes? And in each case, what we found either was it was impossible to do on some of the suggestions, or it increased the transportation cost. And that particular example increased transportation cost by about $1.5 million because of the number of buses we would have had to have added to be able to meet those requirements. So as we looked at all those scenarios, this became the one option that alleviated at the elementary school, in particular, the late dismissal time. And I question whether 10 minutes was enough. And the response we got back from our elementary schools is, yes, it was enough to get staff out and parents out before rush hour traffic and some other scenarios. Every decision has an impact. So what this means by starting school 10 minutes earlier, probably the greatest impact is at the 7 a.m. start, because they will start 10 minutes earlier. They're going to be at the bus earlier. We'll need to monitor this. I do think it has the potential, not that it necessarily will, of leading to increased tardies or potential increased absences if students miss the bus because of the 10-minute earlier pickup time. For staff, it may have an impact on daycare. Is feedback I heard from a few that 10 minutes is the difference between when they can drop their children off and when they can't. So any decision we make is going to have impact. You ask us to go back and take a look at what would be a possible viable option that could alleviate a little bit of the concern on that late dismissal time. This was what was the option that we seemed to meet that request without increasing exponentially our transportation costs or having other impacts. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And what you see in the agenda is what the bus times, beginning, end, school bell times, and afternoon bus times would look like for those tiers by shifting the start of each of those tiers up by 10 minutes.
And I do have a question. The one concern that I've heard are those 7 a.m. times. And I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly. If there's no way, unless we're willing to spend another $1.5 million, we can hold those 7 a.m. times at 7 and still meet the others at the, in other words, a 50-minute time for that 7 and an hour time for the others.
That was probably the scenario that we spent the most time analyzing, and you were looking at needing an additional 50-plus buses to be able to do that, because the next largest tier is that 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. So to be able to scramble those back out to get to their pickup points and do that in 50 minutes meant for many of the, particularly because of the choice we offer our parents through the magnets, created a real crunch at that point in time. So we did carefully look at that one, because on the surface it seemed, well, okay, we should be able to do this with utilizing the max number of third-tier buses that we had, and it didn't work out that way.
Okay, thank you. This is up for a vote if we so want to move. I have talked with several principals in the last week, and they're all holding scheduling, waiting to see what we decide on this, because they've got agendas to send to printers and so on, so they want to have it right.
And in fairness, I should point out, while this solution was well received by elementary, you can imagine those at the 7 a.m. tier were not real supportive of this shift. So, you know, there isn't a win-win-win for all three tiers from a reactionary standpoint as we talked with all those different stakeholders.
Okay. Do I have a vote, or, I mean, a motion, or do we just want to hold this and? Eddie?
I actually was spending just a little bit of time looking over this, and while I know under the present circumstances there's no perfect solution that's going to please everyone, this, however, appears to be the lesser of two evils. So with that in mind, I move that we take the recommended action on this and adopt this current start time.
I'll second that.
Okay, it was moved by Betty and seconded by Jeff that we accept the recommendation from the district.
Thrilled
Please,
about it.
please cast your vote. Motion passes 4-0. Next item.